Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. Sheriff,
Yes.
may I
please.
call the meeting to order?
Yes, please.
Call the meeting to order of the Crow Wing County Board of Commissioners regular meeting. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first thing we have on our agenda is open forum. I see I have open forum here from Mark Olson.
Good morning. I'm Mark Olson, 12336 Thompson Road. As you know, the head of CWC Community Service, Kara Terry, is also a Brainerd City Councilman. Mayor Bedeau expressed concerns in early July regarding Terry's use of public resources when she sent a city department head an email from her county email paid for with our tax dollars. The council room was packed with the people apparently were against an ordinance related to outdoor camping, and Community Service Director Terry said she looked forward to seeing them back for the next meeting to speak. A data request was made. We've learned that one of Terry's employees initiated and took part in a couple 2-hour meetings with the same people who spoke during the public hearing on the outdoor camping ordinance. Your employee met on Friday, July 19th, and scheduled another meeting 1 week later, both during her work hours. The emails show a strategy of how to pick the right people who should talk to the council and how many people should attend so not as to bore the council and lose their support. The community member who spoke against the ordinance were fondly referred to by Terry as my people. Your employee, an employee working in Terry's department, was paid for 8 hours of pay for each of the 2 days where she attended 2 meetings, coordinated activism, and we the people paid for this with our tax dollars. So ponder this. If the county board were trying to pass an ordinance and your employees were being paid to rally community support against your efforts, would you tolerate this? There's no difference between that scenario and what happened down the block a few weeks ago. The question to you people are you going to allow my tax dollars to support activism when your department head allows her employees to work on her behalf for pay? Do you approve these use of county resources like computers, emails, staff time to be used to bolster activism and use the control of the outcome of local governments, laws, and ordinances? We the people demand that you elected officials respond to these questions and take appropriate action. While using public resources, including being paid by public's money, your employees have no authority to make or modify policies of government beyond that of ordinary citizens. If you don't understand why, it's very simple, because it's wrong. Ms. Erickson, I understand that the county board members have received the data requests as I referenced. Is that correct? Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. We'll go on to review and approve minutes of the 8/13 regular board meeting. We have a motion by Franzine, second by Coring. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion, hearing none, motion carries. Review and approve of the agenda.
No changes or corrections.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Coring, seconded by Franzine. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries. Consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Franzine, second by Barrows. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries. Community Services.
You guys are moving so quick this morning. Good morning, Tammy Lewick, Crow Wing County Community Services, Adult Services Manager. Bring before you today a request for a determination of need, which is required by DHS when a facility or a licensed facility either moves, increases capacity, or decreases capacity. I have brought this before you before, back in 16 and in 2019 for Direct Care and Treatments employment services. Their request, or our request, they requested of us, sorry, to decrease their on-site capacity, so they would be moving from 40 to 8 for their on-site capacity. Over the past 6 years, the program has focused its efforts on community involvement, which means that they're either doing employment or integration-related work out in the community and not on a on-site facility. And so they are planning to end their lease at their current facility, and which is 2,962 square feet, and they are looking at a property at 611 Oak Street with approximately 1,658 square feet. With this change, they are requesting to the state that they can move or to us, that they can change their capacity from 40 to 8. And they really don't anticipate that there's any problems with this. They serve, right now they're serving around 17 individuals, and they can continue to serve, a higher capacity with those community placements that they're doing. And they typically don't have any more than 8 in their facility at any given time. So what my request to you today is that you would allow this, that you would approve this and then allow my signature on their needs determination that we need to set into DHS. Questions?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So, as you know, over the years, I don't really like letters, you know that. Just kind of want to rehash it a little bit because, what we're doing is we're lending all the citizens of Crow Wing County, lending their voice on these letters. What happens if we don't do a letter of recommendation or need, I guess is what you're calling it? What happens if we decide we're not going to do that then?
I can find out. It's an application, so we're really not writing a letter. It's a determination of need application that DHS requires. They may move on it, in all our different areas of services, there's some that we are still doing this and then some we're not. And so this is one of those areas where I'm not exactly sure why DHS is continuing to ask us to be a part of this. With our treatment providers, I think those are some of the ones I've brought to you in the past and that you had questioned. They are no longer, they're supposed to just notify us that they're planning to set up a treatment program, but they don't have to get our blessing or, approval. But they are supposed to still notify us when those things are happening.
Mr. Chair, may I just add a clarifying comment?
Please do.
I think in this particular instance, the form that Tammy is referencing is specific to if they're reducing or closing a program. So I think it is a notification from you that you have been made aware that they are putting a reduction, potentially a reduction, if you would, that would have some impact on the community. So that's why they are requiring you or requesting of you to sign off on the application form versus sending a letter of support.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So then another question. So on the if I can explain this properly, so on the letter of need, so when you have something like this, do you make sure that there isn't other vendors that are providing this same type of thing, and I just don't want us to be picking winners and losers. Oh, I like these people, so I'm going to give them a letter of need from the county, but there's a couple other providers over here, and I'm not going to give them. Do you follow what I'm saying with that? I mean, I want to make sure that's not happening. How do you determine whether or not this is the only one that you should be sending a letter of need?
So our other day services, our employment services would be required to do the same thing. with their programs if they were moving or decreasing or requesting any kind of increase. So I would be bringing any request forward to you of those providers that are out in our community.
And
This
what-
particular, application that I'm bringing forward, I don't believe that there would be any impact, because there's really not any change in what they're doing from their service capacity. There is a movement from their Baxter location to Brainerd, and they're notifying us of that.
But, Mr. Chair, so what, I'm saying if there's somebody new, a new company came to town and they came rolling in and they said, hey, I'd like to have a letter of need. So then, would we just grant that, or how?
I would bring that before you to make that decision, and we would explain to you what providers, I think we've done that in the past as well, what providers we currently have in our community and what the numbers that they're serving, and we would make some determination whether or not we could utilize another provider. I think we've done that when we've done the day service programs for individuals. And I think the last one that I may have brought to you was one that was over in the Crosby area. And I think what we talked about was that we didn't have a day service like that in the Crosby area. And so, that was our request that I brought forward at that time.
I still don't like all these letters because it just, I think when we're lending our voice, it's not our voice, it's all the citizens of Crow Wing County, and we're making that decision to lend that voice. That's a big decision, and I just don't like it. But I'm not going to die on this hill. I'm just making my point that I don't know that I think it's the right thing to do. And it would be interesting to see if DHS says, if we don't do a letter, if they say, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all.
Tammy, when I read through this, all it looked like to me was that they're moving from one location to the other. They're moving from a larger square footage to a smaller square footage, which would mean that they would have, they right now they're looking at what, 40? And they're looking at just having the 8, I think, that they're already taking care of. So they're just moving to a smaller location, doing the same thing they're doing.
Correct.
Am I missing something there?
No, correct. They are, based on also the numbers they've been serving on site, they're just, I think, acknowledging that here as well. So for the past 6 years, they're not even close to serving up around 40 overall even. So they're just, I think, clarifying that 8 for their capacity on site.
Yep.
So they still can serve more in the community, and then the movement to the new location.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the board?
I always have concerns,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, but
Yeah.
I will, my only concern would be there's a determination of need by DHS. I don't have a lot of faith in DHS in saying that we're going to go from 40 to 8, because I saw that in the mental health world, where they reduced from 96 beds out here, for example, down to, 48 beds to start with, and then they reduced that to 32 beds. I could go on and on and on, and I won't, but their determination, and I'm sure this has, been vetted out by other people also. I just get concerned that we want to jump off the cliff and drop down to 17 is what they're serving. I just get concerned about that. The fact that they're going to a facility where because really this is just a quick gathering point, and then they go out to their work sites and that, so it's not a place where there's actual treatment going on. There might be some orientation for some of these clients at times, but there's not going to be hands-on training and that going on. So I don't have an issue with that. I just have an issue that we start to drop the numbers down to something that won't address the issue at the level it should in the future. So, but again, to Commissioner Coring's point, I'm not going to get all worked up about this one.
I have the same concerns as Commissioner Barrows. 40 individuals down to 20% of them, 8. That seems like it's a big reduction, and I agree that the Department of Human Services hasn't always known what's going on in our area. So I wish we didn't have to sign this, but they're going to do what they're going to do whether we participate or not, so.
Is it necessary for us to give them an approval or not? As you were saying earlier, does it really matter?
Not really.
They request that we do this, and like I was telling you, that there's certain areas that they've made adjustments, and now where they're only required, providers are only required to notify us. I think this, again, is just there's been some change in whether or not, and I do think it is important that you know what is being created in our community, in our county. So, I don't know that I would just want to have a treatment provider opening up their door and we didn't have any knowledge, but again, that's just a direction that we're going. I mean, when we think, anyway. So you don't have to sign this. I will take it back to DHS if you would prefer not to. I can do that.
I would like to go to
Mr. Chair,
Administrator.
the form or the application form that is before you does have an area where you can provide some comments and feedback as far as what your concerns or your comments might be along with this. And I think it is in interest of the county board to share their concerns. I don't think it hurts to say, yes, we recognize the fact that this does not seem like it's impacting the services that are going to be provided, but we do have concerns about reducing capacity from being able to serve 40 individuals down to 16 or 8 or whatever that amount was, that number of folks that are there. I think you can make those comments known. This, if you don't approve it, without knowing what the impact is, as Tammy said, I think the state would probably, you're not impacting the state here, you would be impacting the service provider. Their lease is up at the end of November. Their current landlord has decided not to renew their lease. So they have to find someplace else to go. I'm sure part of what they're looking at is what is the size of the facility that we need to serve the folks that we are working with. This is not a residential facility, this is a day program, so it's not losing bed capacity. What you'd be looking at is how many people can they service on site in that building at that time? Not the ones that they're serving and putting in other locations or taking to other locations for that purpose, but how many people could be in that one location at one time. I think it would be wise for you to direct Tammy to include some of your comments in the application if you so choose to do so.
Mr. Chair, if there are no other comments, I would make the motion to accept the recommended board action with the caveat that the board members have the right to add some concerns to that document.
I'll second.
Motion by Barrows, seconded by Haug. All in favor signify by...
Mr. Chair, what comments would you like to have delineated in there?
So from my perspective, it's about whether or not it's necessary to change from 40 to 8, but that they can still serve they're saying they have 17 that they actually serve, they could still serve that number at the new location. So to me, it's the location they're more concerned about. The number of people, I don't see a reason to change that number from 40 to 17, or what are they asking for, 8?
8.
Then I don't see a need for that, and that would be my comment, and it would be based on what has happened in the mental health arena.
Would you like to change, might be adding more, but we could just take that out. We don't have to go down to the 8. We could just keep it at 40. That's what it is. Keep it at 40, and they still could move to this location. I don't think that there's anything that says they can't.
As the maker of the motion, that would address my concerns, so I would say that I would agree with that. Is that the new recommendation?
I can make that recommendation, or we could go to, yeah. My only concern with this is that I'm not sure what the capacity of the new location is, because they are reducing their square footage. So I might just be adding, I think employment services have moved from these facility-based employment programs down to, more where they are out in the community. And I think that's what they were trying to acknowledge here. And so is there a number that we feel comfortable with, that we would prefer to put in this request? And recognizing that they are reducing. So maybe we should be looking at that square footage. Maybe I would recommend 20 in this new square footage.
So, Mr. Chair, Tammy, then my concern is this. Is there any need for those numbers to be in there at all? Because as I'm looking at it now, they can serve 40, or they currently could serve 40. They serve 17, and they want to drop to a license that's 8? Wouldn't serving 17 be a violation of that license then?
No, because it was only for on-site, which again, I think is so confusing because historically, in these employment settings, so productive alternatives, direct care and treatment, they served, very high numbers in these site-based employment programs. And that has all moved to community, where they're out in community, integrated, at job locations and not doing the site-based work. And I think that's what's being requested here.
So, thank you for supporting my position, because you could have any number there. You could have 40, you could have 100, you could have whatever, because they're going to basically serve 8 people in that physical setting, correct?
Correct.
So there's no real limit on the number they can serve. It's just a limit on the number they can have in the facility at any one time.
Correct. And that was confusing to me as well when they brought the request forward, but yes. That's the,
So I'm going to withdraw my motion, and I'm going to make a new motion,
okay.
Mr. Chair, to,
Yes.
You have to have the second.
So you have to have the second withdrawn too, don't you?
thank you.
How magnanimous of you.
Should we check with Don?
So my recommendation, or my motion is to accept the recommendation, removing the portion that says that they'll go from 40 to 8, that we leave it at the 40, because it doesn't make a bit of difference.
And I'll second that.
Okay, motion made by Barrow, seconded by Haug. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tammy.
Thank you for that, Tammy.
Okay. Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners.
Good morning.
I am back today in front of you to talk about the Blade Opioid Coalition funding request. We laid this over from the last board meeting to discuss here to get some further insight from the Sheriff's Office on their requests. A couple things that I would like to note. The $200,000 request for Bridges of Hope, we are pausing that. Jana could not make this meeting. Jana Sjogren, the director of Bridges of Hope. She couldn't make this meeting today, and she wants to meet with her board mid-September to talk further on this. So we're tabling the $200,000 and won't need to discuss that today. The second thing that I'll draw your attention to is for the medication pass carts. That total is $9,288.37. We're waiting for approval from the Minnesota Department of Health to be able to pay for those med carts out of the COVID funding pool of money that we have. We try and use the least restrictive dollars first for any funding that we have. This could potentially apply to the use of COVID dollars, and so we're waiting for approval to be able to pay for those. So while that's in here still for consideration, we're potentially pausing that to pay out of a different pot of money.
Can you talk a little bit, Kara, around where the COVID dollars that you're referring to?
So you might remember during the pandemic, MDH allocated quite a lot of COVID dollars to do a number of things, which included assisting with COVID vaccinations, setting up temporary COVID vaccination sites, that type of thing. We still have a pot of money related to COVID vaccinations and COVID administration overall to pay or to use up, right? So we're looking at how we can utilize those dollars to pay for things. We're also looking at utilizing some of that money to pay for the jail health program too. So we're trying to be really creative in how we can support the efforts across the county, not just within community services. I don't have all of that information with me today, but can bring that forward in a future meeting. But what I'd like to focus on is the requests for the opioid coalition, which, yes, sir.
How big of a pot of money are you talking? When you say a pot of money, that doesn't give me a number.
So I believe it's around $400,000
That's still in the,
for community services to utilize. But we put a plan forth to MDH to use up those dollars on a variety of things. So jail health, medication carts, overtime for our staff, basic time associated with any sort of COVID-related activities to pay for staffing time. So for example, I can claim this time that I'm talking with you about COVID dollars towards the COVID pot of money to pay for my salary, for example. We, members of the leadership team, submit our hours that qualify for COVID dollars to Patrick, who over in our shop manages all of that, submits all of that to the COVID grant. So I don't have the exact amount in front of you, nor do I have the exact plan in front of you. I can bring that back at a later date. But just know that we're looking to utilize those dollars as well to help with some of these jail-related costs.
Okay, thank you.
So, I'm not sure where the sheriff wants to start, but we talked about last time the $19,309 for the Lated team, $5,000 for their Drobo Secure Storage Drive, and $14,309 for the Lated team overall. There was the $100,000 to help with funding the jail medical program, and like I said, then the medication carts, which I'd still appreciate approval for funding, but we may not need to utilize opioid dollars to do so. So, if you have questions, then the sheriff's office is here to.
If I recall, did we approve the $8,000 one? That was approved, right?
Yep, for the
Okay.
fire department.
Yep, it says it there.
Yep.
And
Go ahead, Paul.
Chair, so you're asking for that list of things that you just, that's what the request is today?
Yep, so you had asked for additional information in relation to the ongoing costs, and we didn't have the right people in the room to be able to explain that, and we have those right people today who can answer any additional questions you might have about the requests. And again, I'm bringing forward the requests on behalf of the Opioid Coalition. I may not agree with all of them, as we talked about at the last meeting, Commissioner, but this is what the coalition approved.
Mr. Chair, I understand the $100,000 one, but can somebody explain the other Lated ones and what that's for and how you think that relates to the opioid dollars?
The specific $19,309 that's being asked for our Lated team is direct use in the opioid, the fight against opioid abuse. Our Lated team, realistically, that's what they've been doing for the past year. I've talked about this before in regards to the outbreak of the opioid issue within Crow Wing County. This team's main job is fighting opioid crimes within Crow Wing County. So I felt the connection between the opioid dollars and what our Lated team does was a direct reflection of that. And so those dollars that were being used to pay for equipment and insurance for that team was, I felt was appropriate for the use of opioid dollars.
That's the Mr. Chair, that's the 19,309?
That is correct.
And then the other ones,
That's a combination of the $5,000 and the $14,000.
it is, okay. Okay, and then the other one was the 100,000, I understand what that's for.
Correct.
And then what else was there? That's it, right? Pardon me?
The med carts in the jail.
But you were talking about that coming out of the COVID money, is that for sure, or?
Nope, it's not for sure yet. We're still waiting to hear from MDH if they approve the use of our COVID dollars for that expense. If they do approve it, then we will utilize those COVID dollars. If they don't, then we would need to use the opioid dollars.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'm okay with the 19,309, but I am not okay with the $100,000 for the medical program, because it's something that we have to do anyway, and that should be in the budget, I think. And then just putting you on notice, I'm not going to support, well, we're not doing it now, but I'm not going to support the $200,000 for the Bridges of Hope coming out of there. I don't think that's the proper use of the opioid dollars. That's my thoughts on that. But I will support the 19,309. And I'm ready to make a motion unless somebody else has comments.
I don't have any.
Or if the sheriff wants to make his argument, or the chief deputy, I don't know if you're going to convince me, but you can certainly try.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I would like to see your support with that $100,000. Obviously, this is a way of trying to reduce our levy impact in Crow Wing County. I understand your concern in regards to we have to pay for the medical services that we get from Essentia. Obviously, next year, the bill is $260,000 for our medical support. For next year, for 2026, this gets us to that point. It helps reduce that amount. It's a direct reflection of what we're doing to try to rehabilitate our inmates in the jail. I believe it's at appropriate use for the funds to try to offset some of those levy dollars this year. It will reduce our levy impact on the Sheriff's Department for this year. And next year, in 2026, let's say it's $260,000. I'm hoping that maybe there's some COVID dollars maybe that'll be available then. There may be COVID dollars that will handle this year for 2025. Those are unknowns, but obviously we only have a month to try to lower where we currently are in that levy, so I'm trying to think of creative ways that we can get to that number. And like Kara talked about, the opioid dollars have limited use, and I believe that this fits within that category of being able to use those dollars effectively here in Crow Wing County, because that's what we talked about before. It's that treatment program in the jail that's part of this, and that's why I believe that $100,000 is a good use of those dollars. Realistically, I'm hoping that what Kara just brought up in regards to the COVID money is available and can use to pay for these expenses, but it's one of those things that's, I believe the opioid dollars is a good fit for what we need to use it for. I think that this specifically is an example of treatment that is described in what we use opioid dollars for.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, to the administrator, when do those dollars have to be spent? Is it 26?
The
COVID dollars?
COVID dollars
ARPA
are separate from the ARPA dollars. They are not the same. The ARPA dollars are the ones that need to be spent by the end of 2026.
Okay.
The pool of money that Kara is talking about is a separate pool of funds that came for public health to utilize, or for community services to utilize for some of these different avenues. They are not specific or tied to the ARPA dollar restrictions.
There is a timeline in which we need to spend them. I don't recall off the top of my head what it is. I've texted my Gina to see if she can help me with that date, but she hasn't responded yet.
Yeah, I did the same thing.
There
I
is a
asked.
timeline, though.
Yep.
I just don't.
But it's not
remember
tied
when.
with the same thing of the ARPA ones, so I
Correct,
don't
it's a
know that
separate
it
pot
is
of
the
money.
same. Right. Mr. Chair, if I may, just
Yes,
one
please.
comment on the $100,000. And unless you are all feeling strongly that you know that you want to approve that today, I would ask that you might want to just consider that to be something that we look at as part of the budget when we make our final budget discussion. We know that it is something that's currently listed in our operating budget, that we are working through that process yet. When we come before you on September 10th at the next, September 12th at the next budget committee meeting, I would like us to have an opportunity to talk about that at that point in conjunction with the full budget, rather than just as that's one separate item at this point. It is something that we can certainly look at as part of that budget process and bring you a couple of different recommendations or a couple different ways that you could look at it. I do appreciate the fact that the Sheriff's Office is looking for ways to help offset what that levy increase is going to be for 2025. But I know that there are concerns about the fact that this is an ongoing cost and the opioid dollars are not going to last forever. So how can we best utilize what that funding availability is for us at this point? So if you are comfortable with putting a pin in that one at this point for us to look at it in conjunction with the full budget process, you could certainly take action on the other item that you have listed there, and then we can certainly look at that as part of the budget process.
So,
Mr. Chair, I have dates if that matters now.
pardon me.
I have dates. So the monies associated with COVID vaccinations must be spent by June of 2025, and the monies related to COVID recovery must be spent by March of 2026.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
with the ARPA dollars, Deb, there was some guidelines to start what is allowable. In these opioid dollars, is there anything that would tell us?
Mr. Chair, yes and no. Yes is there are some,
That's a clear answer. If I've
well,
ever heard
I
one.
know, and it's like money government answers that we're dealing with. Yes, there is. There
Over
is
here.
some maybe recommendations or some framework that is put in place that says, here are some ways in which you might choose to spend those dollars in your community. But the coalition is responsible for making some recommendations of looking at what are those guidelines and how would you want to apply them. I think it deals around treatment, recovery, prevention, broad categories that can be interpreted in many, many different ways of how you would choose to spend those dollars.
Commissioner Hoag, I had emailed the group the memorandum of agreement that the State Attorney General had sent out to the counties, as well as the Colorado opioid blueprint that we formed our blueprint off of. I'm still waiting for the updated blueprint that reflects our list of members to send that out to you, but I can resend all of those documents if you'd like me to.
Well, I don't know that I need to see all of them. I'm just curious if there are some guidelines and if this would fit into it.
It would fit loosely.
Well, I think that's up to
But-
the elected people
Right,
to decide
right.
whether or not they think it fits in there.
Yes, sir.
At least that's what I think, so. So, may I ask another question?
Sure.
So, to the county administrator, so what you're saying is the $100,000, you're saying, are you saying just, can we leave that in play as we continue to go through the budget process? Is that what you're saying?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Coring, yes.
All right. I guess
Right now-
I don't know that anybody's going to be able to convince me to put that in there, but I will let the budget process play out. So if that's what you think
And
we
right
need to
now, it
do-
is not in the budget. So the recommendation that you saw at Budget Committee last week did not include $100,000 of opioid funding for jail health. That was not included in that at that point in time.
So, Administrator, so we would have to make an action in order to actually put that in there. So right now, it is not in there,
Correct.
and it's not played in
It
there.
is not in
It's
play
just-
at this point.
Okay,
Yep.
okay. Are you ready to make your motion, Paul?
Yeah, I would move that the county board accept the funding of the $9,288.37. No? Oh, the 19,000. Okay, 19,309, that we approve the spending of those opioid dollars. That's sufficient.
You were right, Commissioner, if you could approve the $9,288.37 for the medication carts, but we may not need to utilize those dollars if we get approval from MDH.
I'm not going to include that in my motion.
Okay.
Okay. So your motion is for the 19,309?
309.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you. Next, we have Land Services.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have a couple items for your consideration this morning. The first item on the agenda, 7.1, is the final plat of Olden's Landing. We were here at the last meeting getting the preliminary plat approved for that, and they have achieved and completed all the items needed for a final plat, and so we're here today requesting approval of the final plat for Olin's Landing. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Whose district is that in?
Yeah.
Is that
Doug's.
Doug's?
I have no question. I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Motion by Doug, seconded by Coring. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you. We are now on to the final review of the Crow Wing County Comprehensive Plan from the timeframe of 2024 to 2040. This was a process that we started back in the summer of 2023 with community input. We had, if you look at the request for board action, we summarized all the different opportunities we had to get public input. We had numerous workshops with the county board and the planning commission. We had workshops at the committee of the whole meetings in February, March, April, May, and June, and August of 2024. We had a public comment period this summer from June 4th to July 5th. We received 82 comments. We made some alterations to the plan based on that. We had a public hearing before the Planning Commission on July 18th, and then we were at the last committee of the whole meeting last week with these final details. And so what you have before you today, looking for approval of the resolution that you see in your packet. What that resolution will do is that because the way that the statute reads for a comprehensive plan for a county, we need to adopt an ordinance to establish and adopt the county comprehensive plan, so that is in your packet. So that would be part of the resolution, would be to adopt that comprehensive plan and that ordinance. And then the second part of the comprehensive of the resolution, would be to adopt the future land use map in the plan as the current land use map, effective upon publication. And then the third component of the resolution would be that if the land use districts have changed and a citizen has concerns over that, they would be able to come and make an application to Land Services at no cost to have that looked at by the Planning Commission and by the County Board ultimately for those situations where there's disagreement over how the map was changed. This is something that was done when we did the last map review in 2011, and we had a handful of folks come in and want to have a closer look at their parcel before it was changed. And so that would be for a time frame of 12 months from approval of the plan. I do want to point out one thing that was brought to my attention. I thought we had it fixed, but on page 11 of the plan, there's a little green box that talks about land features. And I think something happened, maybe got cut off by the forest area. So I think we can approve the plan today just knowing that we're going to get those accurate numbers on page 11. I think Commissioner Barrows brought that up to Gary. And so I thought we had that fixed, but I think it was a carryover maybe from a previous draft that we had. So we just need to get that green box fixed, which is it's just updating the numbers is all we're looking to do. So I would like to point out and thank our consultant that we had, Bolton and Mink. We had Robin Kaufman and Dylan Edwards and Moria Hohenstein helping us with this. They were really important in helping to put this together and to help guide the development of the plan. And so I think, and I also would like to thank, working with Matt and Tim over at the Highway Department and helping be part of the committee internally to just, shepherd this through the process. I think it was really, I learned a lot, to be honest, through the whole thing about parts of the county I wasn't always familiar with. So it was a great process. And unless there's any questions for me, I would recommend approval of the resolution as submitted.
Just a question, if I may.
Yep. Have I told you no yet?
Chris, who wrote up, there's a lot of whereases and whereases and whereases. Who wrote this up?
I did.
You did?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
One question is, the last plan was, for 20 years, it was 2000.
Yeah, it was basically
Is-
2004 to 2024.
Is there anything, with the way things have moved in the last 20 years, if we wait another 20 years before we do a comp plan, is there anything planning at all? I know it probably isn't put in here, to take a look at it in 5 years or 10 years to see where we're at? Is there an ongoing Or do we just take it, put it, throw it in the drawer, do our ordinances and carry
Well,
on?
Mr. Chair, there's nothing set in the comp plan at all about a required reviews. And so that would be at the discretion of the county board to decide, hey, we think it's time to do a review. My thought would be that we would take this and run with it for a couple years to see how it applies and how it's working. And if we think we need to come back for some reviews over some specific items, we sure could. But I think that we have a pretty solid plan at this point, and I think the goal is to be more intentional about using it, referring to it, and making sure that it, is that guidebook that's kind of guiding the decisions as we go forward. And so that's, the premise behind this. And if we get to a point of where, we're looking for more guidance in certain areas, there's no reason why you can't update the comprehensive plan to reflect that. But at this point, there's no set time frame for, because I don't think you want to get so prescriptive that you have to do something even if maybe you don't even really think it needs to be done at that point. So that's why it's more of a discretion of the county board to choose that.
An observation from the outside, knowing, being involved in comp plans for other organizations, other local units of government, it seems like we get to a point where, like in this one here, it went out so far and so much had happened in the county that it almost became, that comp plan was almost a hindrance because was based on such old information.
Right.
That it was making you do a lot of other things that you had to change that maybe should have been directed in the plan. That was the only thing I want to
Yeah,
make,
no, I agree
make a
with
point
that.
of that.
Mr. Chair, I agree with that, and I think that, I think the plan from, at least my perspective, is just to be more active with the plan and to make sure that we're using it and making sure it applies to the guidance and how we want the growth of the county to be between now and 2040. And if something comes up that just isn't working, we'll have that discussion and see if there's any changes that need to be made.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had. Anybody else on the board have any other comments or?
Mr. Chair, I will just again say what I said the other day, which I think Bolton and Mink and Chris, you and your team did a super job on this, and the other staff that have been included around the organization. It's 100% better than what I saw when I first came on the board, the last one. So with that, I would make the motion to approve the resolution adopting the 2024 through 2040 Crow Wing County Comprehensive Plan and adopting the future land use map in the plan as the new land use map ordinance number 2401.
Second.
Motion by Barrow, second by Francine. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Hearing, all opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
County Sheriff. Front and center.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning, Sheriff.
Yeah, thanks. We've had a really good summer, and I want to share one story with you that happened this last week. Law enforcement was dispatched to a call where the individual was out of control. He was in complete psychosis, really, and he ended up getting arrested and brought to our facility. Once at the facility, we learned that he had ingested some mushrooms, shrooms, or psychedelic mushrooms. And so we thought that it'd be a good idea to take him to the hospital, which we did. And he was later cleared, brought back to the jail, and one of our jailers, while we were booking him in, trying to get him through the booking process, realized that there was something going on with this guy that was outside of what he recognized as somebody just being under the influence of drugs. And he really advocated for this guy to bring him back to the hospital. And we ended up bringing him back to the hospital, and they found that this individual had a brain bleed. And that could have been, he ended up getting flown out, and that could have been a very dire situation for him. And it just goes to show you, and it seems like I'm always praising the guys that are working at this agency, and everybody does a great job. But this is another, direct reflect of, our retention process, because, this jailer has been around for a long time. He's had a lot of experience with dealing with people. He's not a doctor, he's not an expert in that, but he really, he pulled the stops out on this one, and we just are really thankful for the good work that he's done as well. So, also, we got Labor Day weekend coming up, so we have some, that'll be a busy time for us, and we are full staff for that. So we'll be going after those that are driving fast and taking chances. Although we do need the revenue, so keep that up if you're a speeder. We appreciate that. We also, I'll yield and take any questions if you have any.
Any questions from the board for the sheriff?
I do appreciate giving us that little nugget that you're not hard and fast on the 299 after that, the $100,000 one. So I appreciate that.
We'll keep working at it.
Thank you, Sheriff. We have the county attorney present.
Tough act to follow, but I don't have anything for you today. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
I guess just a comment, I was just looking over there at Don, and I'm thinking the way my head is and the way Don's head is, I think it's going to be, people are going to wonder if we're twins or something. I hope not.
I don't know that that's going to happen, but possibly.
And please don't expect any of us to adopt that same do. Thank you. County Administrator.
Mr. Chair, the senior management team did not meet yesterday. We're still working through some of that budget process, and we will continue to work through that as well. The other item I have on the agenda today is an appointment to the county HRA. We did receive a resignation from Michael Morford, who represented District 2 on the county HRA board. So the recommendation before you today is to appoint Tyler Gardner to replace Michael Morford as the District 2 representative on the Crow Wing County Housing and Redevelopment Authority for a term expiring 12/31/2028. And further, to authorize a certificate of appreciation be prepared for Mr. Morford's service to Crow Wing County.
That is a board appointment, right?
Correct.
I'll just give you a little history of Tyler. Tyler is currently the mayor of the city of Pequot Lakes. He is a hometown Pequot Lakes resident. When Michael had given his name in, as it was in my district, I had looked around for people to serve. And Pequot Lakes has an HRA, and they've had an HRA for quite a while, but it's more of a building management type company. It hasn't really been a full HRA like we think of an HRA. And so Tyler asked if he could join that, partially because as of now, they are actually funding part of our HRA trust fund, where they hadn't for years before. So I think he'll be a great asset to the board. They also have a fair amount of challenges up in the Pequot Lakes, Breezy Point area as far as with housing, residential housing, and they've been searching on that. I think it'll be a great appointment for the board. So that's all I had. So I'll wait for the board to make a motion.
Can I ask a question before we make a motion?
Sure.
I was quoting to somebody that, well, I think I was talking to Mike Ollie, and once you're appointed, it's a 5-year appointment, and even if the county commissioner changes, they can't remove that person until the 5-year term is completed. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, that is correct for the HRA appointment. The HRA is a little bit different. It has its own special statute that HRAs are governed by. So unlike other committee appointments where if the commissioner changes and they would like to appoint somebody else to represent from their district for other county committees, that is at your purveyance to be able to do so. With the HRA, that 5-year appointment has to be completed unless that person chooses to leave.
I found that out when I became commissioner, because they said you can have your own appointments, and then found out.
Except for this one.
Except for the HRA.
Right.
Yeah, so.
Mr. Chair, I would make the motion to appoint Tyler Gardner to the Crow Wing County HRA Board.
Second.
Motion by Barrow, second by Francine. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries.
Mr. Chair, that's all I have for agenda items, but happy to answer any questions you may have.
Do you want the certificate of appreciation too? That wasn't part of your motion.
That will be part of the motion.
The appreciation sent out to Michael?
Yes.
Okay.
I guess we should have listened to the lawyer first.
If there isn't any business, I would.
No.
Oh, you have a question?
Yeah, no, I don't have a question, just a comment. Well, a couple of things. I have a comment, but first, I'm just wondering, not to put you on the spot, but I'd like to do that. But I don't know if our great county engineer has anything to say. It's my understanding, I heard from a friend of mine who works at Anderson Brothers, and he said, well, we just finished up the roundabout in Cross Lake. I don't know if you have any comments on that. I did talk to you yesterday. I think it's gonna be open on Thursday, if I'm not correct, and I was just wondering if you want us to get that ribbon and the big scissors or anything. You can see that it's a no on that.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Coring and the rest of the commissioners. Yes, the roundabout in Cross Lake, the 3 and 66 roundabout we've been working on for a number of years through the planning process, is going to be open on Thursday, and that's just a reminder, that's phase 1. We have 2 phases, and we did that specifically to lessen the impact to businesses in that area. So the roundabout will be open Thursday. That means that R.L. Larson, the contractor, will qualify for the $40,000 construction incentive that we assigned to this project. Phase 2 will start the Tuesday right after Labor Day. So it was very intentional that the full road be open without detours throughout the Labor Day weekend, because it's such an important time for Cross Lake. So, yes, you're right. It's going to be open. We're really happy. R.L. Larson has done a very good job and has been very responsive to our needs and the business owners' needs up there. And it's been really good partnership so far.
And the next phase will be a little more, as far as back roads and stuff like that, it'll be a little harder on that one. But are they going to try to keep one lane open or try to keep a lane open there?
Yes, we've been in contact with our contractor about phase 2, and within that community, that's been the most concerning portion of this project. This goes, if you're familiar with the area, from Swan Drive up to where the very popular ice cream shop is, and there's not a very good detour. Phase 1, we were able to use some in-town roads to accomplish, getting traffic around. Here, it's a much longer official detour that takes them all the way into Ideal Township and to the west side of Cross Lake. And so there's concerns about removing traffic in front of these very businesses that rely on
We
traffic.
also have a school there, correct?
There's a school, and we're very...
They'll be starting.
They'll be starting, so we have to get buses in there. So this will be the most challenging of the two. You would think that the roundabout and building that would be the most challenging, but phase 2 will be, because how we're dealing with traffic, not only the tourist traffic for the end of the season, but now school traffic and all that comes with that.
Yeah, I think I was fairly lucky in phase 1. I did not receive one phone call. I don't know if I'll be that lucky in phase 2.
I don't think it's luck. I think we had an excellent team up there, and we've done an excellent job of communicating, and hats off to our project manager, Steve Stroshine, who's been, that's the comment I get, is how well he is communicating, and the businesses really appreciate that, and the visitors really appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
I have if I may, have a comment?
Sure.
Okay. I will say that I really kind of have a heavy heart today, or I've had a heavy heart since, and I hope you don't get mad at me, but since August 13th, the primary, Commissioner Hoag didn't make it through the primary, and I think I'm more upset and than he is, and sad. I know it's just been I probably should wait until the last meeting of the year, but I just feel like I want to tell you now that I think you've done an excellent job. We've done so much here at this county compared to the other 87 counties. Yes, I'm very biased, but Doug was a part of all of this stuff when we combined the auditor treasurer. We went for special legislation. The legislature had to let us do that. Debbie went along with it, being that she was the auditor. And I'll tell you what, it was the right thing to do. And we were able to shed lots of employees because we combined everything. Somebody didn't have to go downstairs to the recorder's office, then come up to and pay up at the auditor's office, and then go back down there. And when Doug first got here, I'm just spitballing, but I think the county had about between 40 and $50 million in debt. Now we have absolutely no debt whatsoever. And the board has seen fit, along with Commissioner Hoag, that we be a pay-as-you-go county. And out of the 87 counties, obviously, I don't know how many are that way, but I think that's really something to be said for that. We just had the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the 100th anniversary of the Milford Mine, and I will say that the Milford Mine would not be what it is, the park would not be what it is today without Commissioner Hoag. And the same thing, if anybody ever gets up to the new Emily Park, I said this yesterday, where when we first went up there, I really thought, this is a stupid idea. But it was Doug's idea to move forward with this. And I've served with him so long that I thought, you know what, if he thinks it's a good idea, it must be a good idea. Now, if you go up there and you see that facility, it's going to be huge for people up there. They're really going to love it. You know, after the Tuesday, August 13th election, you know, Doug could have been all pissed off and say, I'm not going to go to any more meetings, but I talked to him, and he went to Riverton that night because Riverton is wanting to put in a hydrant, so he was there still trying to help his community, and I applaud you, and I think it's going to be, I think it's sad that 12% of the people showed up to vote. And I think that's really what it was. But it's been my honor to serve with you, and I think you've been an excellent commissioner. Your style is different than mine. You know, mine is mean and loud, and you know, and yours is more trying to talk to people. You know, and which I talk to people, maybe kind of loud sometime, you know, when it's dawn or something. But I just want to say that I think you're an excellent county commissioner, and I think a mistake was made up there. But I guess that's the way it goes. I've lost lots of elections, but anyway, I hope you go to breakfast with me this morning after we're done. Okay.
Is that what this was all about, is for you guys to go to breakfast today?
You get
I hope he's not mad.
You still can't buy him breakfast.
You still can't buy him breakfast?
I appreciate the words, Paul, and this board has done some outstanding work, and the next board will as well. So we've taken the county, and we got the ship steered the right direction, and I think we all played a part in that. So I appreciate it.
You're a good man.
It's been an honor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, if there are no other remarks, I would make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye.